Hello everybody and welcome to ISBL's Termly Update for December 2021. As introduction, I'm Stephen Lester and I'm privileged to have the role of Chair of Trustees at ISBL, and I'm joined today by Stephen Morales, ISBL Chief Executive, and we're going to discuss a few key activities that have been happening during the last quarter and to look forward to what we think may be coming at us in 2022. This is based on the fact that the more that we can be aware of what the future may bring, the better prepared we can be, both as individuals and also for those organisations that we work for and with. Unfortunately, at the time of recording in mid-December, we're sadly impacted again by concerns around COVID with the new Omicron variant. This is impacting across society generally and of particular concern for the education sector, the schools, academies and colleges. I think it's a real worry how much COVID has impacted and puts pressures on all of us who work in the education sector. And it feels that a significant amount of that pressure has fallen on school business leaders, on ourselves, in supporting the extra work, whether we're coordinating, organising logistics, and meeting expectations for our facilities, testing, staffing, parental communication and engagement. However, we've all stepped up and taken on this work, and amazing credit to everyone how we have delivered on this. I really hope that all of you have been recognised within your organisation, and it's important that there is thanks given. The Department for Education ministers have taken the opportunity on various occasions, whether it be in speeches, when they're attending conferences or workshops, and certainly in terms of publications, of giving thanks and reaffirming their support for us as school business leaders. And on behalf of ISBL, I want to give a heartfelt thanks to everyone who's been involved in this work and the effort for our pupils and in striving to minimise the impact on our schools. In addition, of course, we've had all of our day jobs and continue to have to work in terms of facilities, HR, health and safety and all of that. And I know the day job itself is a big enough challenge without all the other stuff that we have to work through. So let's move on and let's look at what ISBL has been doing since September. Stephen, perhaps I can start first of all discussing the area of school resource management. I know that ISBL are involved in a number of aspects, but from your perspective, what do you see as being the role of school business leaders in school resource management? What's our responsibility? And also what's our responsibility for wider school leadership and governance in terms of school resource management?
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. I completely echo all of your opening remarks in terms of the pressure that schools and school leaders have been under, and it's I remain in awe of school business professionals during what has been an incredibly difficult couple of years. In terms of resource management, so I think the first thing to say is that sometimes we look at resources through the very narrow prism of consumables. So we might think of pens, paper, things we can touch, but actually resources are everything. It's knowledge, it's people, it's tech, it's leadership, and I think the role that the school business leader plays is so critical to the effectiveness of schools and trusts, because actually the way that you deploy resources, the way you optimize the resources that are available to you will ultimately be quite defining for the school and trust that you work in. I think in particular the deployment of probably the most important resource we have in schools, which is teaching, is absolutely central. And I know that there's some skepticism about things like benchmarking and integrated curriculum-led financial planning, because of course schools are unique and context is king. But I think it is really helpful to have a look at where you're situated when you look across the system, and it's not necessarily that you have to make radical decisions and be a slave to those metrics, but it's important that you understand where you sit, and it will tell a story. And even if it's just the start of a conversation with governors, with trustees, with other faculty colleagues and the SLT, well, that's healthy. I think that's a healthy place for us to be. You mentioned, Stephen, in your remarks the importance of the importance of different actors, different protagonists, if you like, within our system talking together. I think that's absolutely central, that the concept of joined up leadership, where business, pedagogy and governance don't work in silos, but they actually work seamlessly together. And the clue is in the word. When we talk about integrated curriculum-led financial planning, it's about integrating both conversations around resources and the curriculum ambition. And of course, we always want the driving force behind any school improvement plan to be that curriculum ambition. So that's improving outcomes for children. But we have to be conscious about the resources that are available to us. So we can't blindly plough ahead with ambitious plans if we don't have the funds to resource and to sustain those plans. So it's about bringing those actors together. It's about bringing faculty heads, senior school business professionals, head teachers, governors, trustees into the room and having a conversation about where do we get the best from the people that we have? How do we deploy them in the most effective way? How do we develop a sustainable plan that will best serve the needs of our community of learners? And if you look at our blueprint, that's absolutely central to everything that we are doing and that we will do in the future. By way of just a very quick canter through some of the things that are happening that we are supporting, of course, there is this School Resource Management Advisor Initiative, which is quite mature now in terms of its evolution. We have up to 150 accredited professionals that we will be deploying across the system, and we hope, the future ambition of the programme, that it's not just for multi-academy trusts or trusts indeed, but it's broader in its reach, and it starts to provide services to maintain schools as well. We're not quite there yet, but that's the kind of longer term ambition. I think we do need to change the narrative that's out there around school resource management. There has been this perception that it's some kind of backdoor intervention, and it's not. It absolutely, and you talk to, don't just take my word for it, talk to officials and they will tell you that the intention is absolutely not an intervention, but it is about providing support, guidance and a steer for trusts and their leadership teams in terms of how they might do things slightly differently. And of course, when the recommendations are made, there is a degree of optionality. So, trusts may say, well, actually, that makes absolute sense for us, but given our context, we may not want to do X, Y, and Z. So I think we should see it in, through the lens of a sector-led, system leader approach to improvement, in the way that we've embraced national leaders of governance and national leaders of education, and not as some kind of if you like, proxy for a financial version of Ofsted, which it absolutely isn't. So the school resource management piece, which we're heavily involved in, and we continue to provide the largest community of advisors, and we're learning a lot. We're learning a lot when we visit schools. We're learning a lot from those advisors, and the ongoing conversation, I just think it really helps us understand where the pressure points are in the system, and indeed it helps us inform our CPD proposition. There is now a dedicated department at the Department for Education. It's the School Resource Management Division, and that has oversight of the school resource management advisors, but also some of the work that's taking place in procurement. There are a number of resources, webinars, and other support toolkits that are growing, and we are fortunate in that we're able to inform what they look like and how they develop and evolve. And it is something that is very much front and center in terms of the Department for Education's broader education strategy, and that, I think, I am very encouraged by that, because it puts school business professionals front and center. So I've said quite a lot there, Stephen, but I thought it was worth just talking through some of those key themes.
Thanks, Stephen. A couple of points to pick up and maybe emphasise a little. In terms of recruitment for school resource management advisors, as you say, ISBL are one of the providers, along with North Yorkshire County Council, and if members are interested in discussing what role involves and putting themselves forward, I believe that both organisations have vacancies at the moment. So that's something for people to think about, and certainly make contact with ISBL, Sarah Ray, who heads up that team. And I know she'd be very willing to talk with anybody and put you in touch with other school resource management advisors if you're interested in applying and being recruited for that role. The other aspect, maybe to reinforce, is you mentioned integrated curriculum financial planning, ICFP. That's becoming more central, I think, within the department's thinking, as I understand it. So, for example, academies have to complete the school resource management self-assessment tool that will be needed, returned March next year. Maintain schools through the school financial value standard, SFVS, and ITFP is now a specific question. Just mention a little bit more, Stephen, in terms of how you feel that ITFP can help school business leaders establish themselves, if you like, build their status and role within schools.
Yeah, sure. And it's, I think the interesting thing about this is that the concept is actually goes back a few decades. It's not something that's new. It's become fashionable. It's been something that I think Lord Agnew, when he was in post, was very enthusiastic about this, and subsequent ministers have run with the concept, and I do think it's tremendously valuable as a concept, bringing pedagogy, governance, and business together in that conversation. Yeah, I mean, the history goes back to something called Cosmos, which was a kind of early version of ICFP. But the important thing is that is this idea of not running your trust or your school in these silos. So finance taking care of finance, pedagogical leaders looking at the curriculum, timetabling, and then perhaps governors and trustees coming to the conversation quite late in the day. And what I think we should be encouraging school business professionals to do is to bring those actors together, and ICFP absolutely is the way to do that. And I'll say again, it's not it's not a silver bullet. It's not a panacea in and of itself. We understand that schools come in different shapes and sizes, and you can't standardize things to the extent that you could if you were creating widgets in a factory. It's the nature of education is that it's nuanced, and that's important. But there are very sensible a very sensible set of metrics that are worth looking at. I mean, I think it is right to be asking the question, what's the size of your leadership team, and what's the leadership pay burden, if you like, on the school compared with your overall budget? And if that's out of kilter, you need to be able to justify as a governing body, or as the chief executive or the head teacher, why that is where it is. Likewise, why are contact ratios where they are within your particular setting, and what's the justification for that? So I mean, it's for me, it's sensible. It's sensible, a sensible integrated approach to your financial planning, and it brings everything together. And I think that's the beauty of it. And I know that there are skeptics. That there are those that'll say, oh, it works very well for secondary, but not so well for primary. It really doesn't work for special schools. But actually, many elements of it do. And I agree that there isn't a drop and lift, drop and drop, or shouldn't be approach to this. Absolutely agree that the approach that you take in a secondary school might be quite significantly different in a primary school, but actually there are lots of things where there is synergy and comparability. So I think that's the thing, and I think I hope that we move away from pushing and resisting the approach, the concept, embrace it, but make it work for your context. I think that's the important thing.
Yeah, just catching up on that last point, ICFP, it's a tool. It's like lots of tools we have in life. And if you talk to a craftsperson, they talk about the fact that you have to spend time using a tool to kind of get the best out of it, to know really how you carve well with a chisel, or, you know, if you're doing any sort of craft work, it takes time. And it's the same with ITFP. You have to practice, you have to kind of work with it, understand how it applies, how to best utilize. Anyway, let's move on a little and talk a bit more about maybe school business professional standards. You referenced a little bit within our last topic in terms of the need for a variety of skills for school business leaders. So what have we been doing in terms of school business professional standards? Maybe a link into some qualifications. What have we been working on, and what opportunities are there coming at us?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a few things to say here. So everything we do at the institute is underpinned by professional standards. That's the first thing to say. But we recognise that our sector, our system is evolving, and so the standards need to evolve with the reforms that we are experiencing, and we have a 3-year cycle where we go back to the standards and we look at them again, and we say, are they relevant? Are they meeting the needs of the school business leadership community, given wherever we are along that evolutional trajectory? Where I think there is an interesting conversation that's taking place, and I'll bring this back to professional standards, but the department have over the last 5 years been taking a much more significant role in what the school business profession looks like, and they've developed something called the SBP strategy, and we're on to the latest iteration. They're working through the latest iteration, and the document will be published probably early spring, probably to coincide with the white paper. Now, in that document, what they're exploring is where the sector is vulnerable, where the training needs exist. To what extent should we be investing as heavily in school business leadership as we are in other strands of leadership? For example, the MPQ framework. Should there be an MPQ framework for school business leaders, or do we just tweak the existing MPQ framework so that it's more relevant for our community? And I think the fact we're having that conversation is exciting. I can't predict what the outcome will be, but I can certainly see the dial shifting in terms of light touch programs to something a little bit more significant. And I'm hoping that what will follow is some proper funding to back that up, which I think is incredibly exciting. What I think we're understanding now is that there are these 3 flavors emerging, and I've talked about this over the last couple of years, but I think it's coming into sharp focus now. There's those that will operate as generalists, those that will gravitate to a specialism, and those that will be seeking those senior executive roles. And interesting, those executive roles come in different flavors as well. So there's executive specialists and there's executive generalists as well. And so given that landscape, we need to develop a portfolio of qualifications that meets the needs of those various flavors. So we definitely still need to develop programs that meet the needs of generalists, those that are operating across a range of disciplines, often operating at a local level, which is a quite different role from somebody operating at an executive level that has a high levels of accountability and in terms of scale, normally bigger teams, bigger budgets, and so forth. And by the way, neither of those roles are less or more important. They're just different. And I think we need to appreciate that as well. And then, of course, we've got the specialist roles, and that's interesting in its own way, because I think we were used to specialists in finance, FDs, if you like. Probably saw a few HR specialists within schools, more in trust than in the maintained sector, but they started to emerge. But now we're seeing procurement specialists. In fact, the department are now working on a scheme to develop some professional standards around a commercial director role, which is brand new. But I think we're going to see more of this. So I think we're going to see the sector, the school business leadership space operating within those buckets, if you like, the generalist, the specialist, the executive. I think we'll see programs of study that responds to the needs of those different groups. I think our professional standards probably need to evolve to reflect those distinct groups. And when we talk to our providers, so when we talk to the likes of Serco and Best Practice Network and Chester University, and apologies if I've left others off, but you know the list is quite.
SIPFA, maybe.
Absolutely, SIPFA, for example. Yeah, it's quite a big list. When we talk to those providers, what we'll need to be saying is, what are you doing in each of those spaces? How relevant is it given the evolution of the sector, and always pointing them back to the latest iteration of professional standards and making sure that maps very, very, very neatly. Just one other thing to say on professional development. I am really keen for the curriculum design to be heavily influenced by practitioners on the ground, because they know best what they need, frankly. So if we can get more feedback from regional groups, from networks, from practitioners that we talk to through consultation groups, then I think we can get a much better sense of where the real vulnerabilities are, and how we invest specifically in meeting those needs.
That's great. It really feels that this is an area that's going to be an area for particular focus, but also opportunities going to come through this. And as with all training, it's important to be ahead of your new position. So to be looking out for what your potential opportunities are, what roles do you think are of most interest to you as an individual, and then look at what training you could consider having prior to applying for or being assigned to this new role. We've touched on a few things looking forward to next year and things that might be coming at us. Perhaps we could spend a bit of time just talking about 2022. What things do you see within the sector that school business leaders need to be looking out for, and what are ISBL doing to support what of these initiatives may be coming at us?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot that I anticipate will reach a bit of a crescendo, if you like, in the new year. So we've been waiting for quite some time now, the publication of the SEND review, and that's been delayed various times, but we're told on good authority that won't be delayed much further, and we hope to see that in early 2022, possibly around February time. And I think we can't underestimate the impact that's going to have, because I can't in any world imagine that the SEND problem has gone in reverse. I'm sure it's a bigger problem now than it ever was. And on top of that, COVID and the ripple effect is going to be a big challenge, and there will be both resource and funding implications for schools across the system. So I think it's a really important part of the puzzle that we don't yet have when we're having these broader conversations. The national funding formula consultations will start to reach a conclusion into 2022. We've had the first round. We're going to move into the second round, the deeper dive into the NFF. I anticipate that those reaching some kind of conclusion mid next year. I've already talked about the school business leader, school business professional strategy that will be published again, we hope before Easter, and at the same time we anticipate the white paper coming out, and that will be governments setting out its vision for the future of our education system. I think we know what the end destination is. What we don't know is the speed of that end destination. And when I talk about the end destination, I think this government are very keen on as many schools coming together as possible, and their default vehicle for that is a multi-academy trust. And there's no way of sugarcoating that. That's what they want. That's what they're seeking. Now, what we don't know is how quickly they're going to push those reforms forward. How much will be carrot and how much will be stick? The white paper will tell us a great deal more, no doubt. But that's where I anticipate we're heading. And there are a number of things I think that support that kind of policy trajectory, including the Academy Handbook, financial handbook that is now the Academy Trust Handbook, the consultation on the removal of the school improvement grant, again would signal a particular move in a particular direction. Sector-led approach to school improvement, taking the grant away, moving it into the dedicated schools grants and that level of optionality. So yes, I think what we'll have hopefully before Easter is more clarity, more certainty. Whether we welcome the changes or not, I think we're going to have to an extent, live with them. And our job as the Institute is to make sure that, irrespective of political leanings, that we just position our community for what's coming at them. And my sense is that as a school business professional, you need to reflect on which of those three flavours is the one that you want to opt for, and recognise that there'll be things that you give up and there's things that you gain. So if you're looking at that local generalist role, you don't have the same level of accountability that you do at a senior level. But don't expect to be paid the same as somebody that's working at an executive level. If you work at an executive level, the demands on you will be enormous. And with that, you'll enjoy career progression. So I think it's about choices. It's about what you want to do, and indeed what you want to invest both professionally and emotionally in your future. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that there's a right and wrong. It's just about these are the options that are in front of you, and you take, you make your choice based on what ambition you have, professionally and personally. But that's the way I see things playing out over the coming weeks and months. And as I say, I think what we're going to have is at least more certainty so that we can plan for the future.
Great. So some key messages there in terms of a number of initiatives, a number of publications are going to be coming out in the next few months. It's important for all of us to take time to understand that. As the Institute, we'll have a responsibility to do some analysis and positioning, so some interpretation, if you will. So that needs to come out alongside the publications themselves from the government and other bodies. Super. Just in terms of kind of coming towards the end of our discussion, Stephen, any sort of areas of thoughts, of other areas that you want to raise on?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can't, and I've said this on a number of blogs recently and podcasts, that we're a professional body, and well-being is not our natural calling. It's not central to what we do, but we do care deeply. And we can't ignore the well-being problem. It's the fact that we're seeing not only teachers but school business leaders reflecting on whether they can go on. I mean, it's got to that point. And I think my message to colleagues out there is maybe take the Christmas period to just pause and reflect a little bit, if you can. Certainly spend time with loved ones. And I think when returning back in the new year, I think you just need to set reasonable expectations of yourself. I know people will to an extent heavily influence what your workload looks like. But I think we can take personal responsibility for it ourselves. And I think that, it is okay to say now and again to say no. This is just too much, or to say I can do X, Y, and Z, but I then can't do the other three things that you want. So which one do you want me to drop before I take on the next one? And again, that's really easy to say and a lot harder to do. But I do think if we can create some kind of personal discipline with the extent to which we give ourselves wholly to what we're doing, then I think we can give ourselves a bit of a chance. What I would say, although I started this contribution by saying that it wasn't our natural calling, I am encouraging sector bodies and indeed our commercial partners to coalesce around if you like a cross-sector approach to this wellbeing issue. So whilst we might not have all the answers, we are working with others who can provide that professional support, and we're already piloting this with a couple of local groups, and I think that's being well received. So I think there's a piece around taking some ownership of the workload that you're facing and trying to be kinder to yourself, if you like. And then there's a piece of work that we need to continue to do with others who are better placed than us to really support you emotionally and professionally through what has been an incredibly difficult period. And as I said at the start, I am just in awe. School business professionals get up every day, just get on with it, and whatever's thrown at them, they just seem to just work it out, and it's quite remarkable. And actually, given everything that's been thrown at schools, we've kept going. So it's marvelous.
Thanks, Stephen. Really important words, especially the piece around having the self-confidence to understand when it's appropriate to say no. And obviously there's a way that you position your no's, and it depends upon who's asking you. But you cannot keep taking on more and more and more, because something's going to give, and it's not right that that's you. So as Stephen says, please take the time over this forthcoming break to have time to relax, to recover, to re-energize, and come back ready for the new term in January. Thanks very much, everybody. Take care.